Alright, one player went crazy and turned into a dog. Another got fined so often for his crazy celebrations, he usually prepared $100,000 every season just in case. These are the craziest celebrations banned by the NFL. First up is our lightning-fast wide receiver Tyreek Hill, who found himself in a bit of a pickle in 2022 for his pom-pom celebration. You see, Tyreek has a knack for leaving defenders in the dust, but apparently his celebrations were a bit too hot to handle. Imagine this. It's the third quarter of Kansas City's win over the Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium. Hill zooms past every opponent on the field like he's got rockets in his cleats, and boom! Touchdown! The crowd goes wild, expecting some next-level celebration, and boy, did Tyreek deliver. He took some pom-poms from a cheerleader and whipped out a weird move where he screams and dances around. No flag was thrown and everybody just laughed over the dance. But the bigwigs in charge decided that Tyreek's celebrations were just a tad too over the top. So they decided to take a fine of $12,875 from his net worth of $40 million. This was 3 years after he was fined $10,000 for flashing a peace sign during a touchdown celebration. Hill has gotten into more trouble since then, but at least he didn't turn into a freaking dog like Odell Beckham Jr. Woof woof. When the New York Giants played the Philadelphia Eagles in September 2019, it was entertainment as usual. But even though the Eagles ended up losing the match, the most entertaining event of the game came when Beckham pulled off one of his craziest touchdown dance moves ever. We know him for turning the field into his dance floor. From the whip to the nay-nay, the guy had moves that would make even the most rhythmically challenged among us want to bust a groove. I mean, who can forget the time he did the dirty bird or pretended to propose to the kicking gnat? Classic stuff, folks. But a dog taking a piss was way out of line. Well, at least according to the NFL, who slapped him with a $12,154 fine. This fine made it $221,546 of all the fines he had collected in his career up till that time in 2019. I mean, $12K is huge for a fine. But this next player was fined times 2 that amount. For twerking. It's October 2016, and former wide receiver for the Steelers Antonio Brown catches a touchdown in the end zone. The crowd erupts in cheers and they wait happily, knowing that Brown would likely bust a move. But what's he gonna do this time? Backflips? Cartwheels? Maybe even break out into a salsa dance? No. Think again. Brown turns the pitch into his club and starts twerking. But instead of getting a few stacks slapped on his backside, the powers that be slapped him with a fine of $24,309. Oops, sorry Brown, you might have a career in dancing after you retire, but the NFL couldn't care less. But where Brown had brought a TikTok trend to the field, Joe Burrow took the NBA to the NFL. In the NBA, players are not prohibited from smoking a cigar, an e-cigarette, or even cigarettes if they wanted to. This is why we see LeBron James or Michael Jordan doing it so comfortably in front of the camera. But in the NFL, it's a different ballgame. I mean, they actually use different balls, but you know what I'm talking about here. NFL players are not allowed to vape or indulge in any form of smoking whatsoever. But obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow didn't get that memo. So to celebrate winning the national championship with his college team, Burrow and some of his teammates were caught smoking some cigars in their locker room. His mistake would have gotten him arrested and probably reduced his chances of playing in the NFL, but he dodged a bullet. Nevertheless, Joe Burrow is not the only NFL player that has tried to copy the likes of LeBron James. Except for this time, instead of getting nearly arrested by the cops, Pryor was actually fined the sum of $9,000. What did he do, you might ask? Well, he didn't subscribe to this channel. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe before you get a fine yourself. Anyway, Pryor simply just did the LeBron James clutch celebration and his chalk toss all at once. It was his first ever receiving touchdown, but alas, the fun police swooped in and decided that Pryor's celebration was a bit too much for their liking. They waved their finger and slapped him with a fine, sending a clear message. No LeBron dances on our watch, Terrell. I know what you're probably thinking. What the heck is so wrong with what he did? Well, you are not alone. But here's the gist. The the NFL actually penalized him for doing the dance while he still had the ball in his hand, and this was regarded as, quote, an unsportsmanlike conduct. Crazy, right? But that is nothing compared to what Isaiah Crowell did. Isaiah Crowell's September 20, 2018 crime was not just disrespectful, but funny as hell. I mean, nobody really saw it coming when he faced his former team, the Cleveland Browns, who he played 4 seasons with. His team, the New York Jets at the time, lost 21-17, but the running back had a field day after scoring a touchdown. I personally thought he was about to twerk when he squatted halfway, but the dude instead pretended to wipe his butt with the ball. God. And if that wasn't enough, he took the ball and threw it into where the fans stood. Ew, God, that's just stinking, man. The NFL registered the same disgust as most people and fined him $13,369. But here's where it all gets exciting. After the fine, Crowell won himself a huge deal with Dude Wipes, who later tweeted photos of Crowell with their product and the caption, "A wipe to remember. We've got you covered," at Isaiah Crowell 34. But not every crazy celebration gets a brand deal. Most just get a huge fine, like Michael Thomas's. 20 years ago, Joe Horn did something so crazy the league went wild. You see, after scoring a touchdown for the New Orleans Saints, the former professional wide receiver got a phone from his teammate, Michael Lewis. A flip phone he pulled out from under the padding of the goalpost. Then, Horn proceeded to make a fake phone call to his 4-year-old son, Jace, fulfilling his promise to him. His son, by the way, is currently a cornerback for the Carolina Panthers. Anyway, it looks sweet from a parent's point of view, but the NFL didn't take it lightly and fined Horn $30,000. This should have served as a deterrent to any other player, right? Wrong. Because 15 years later in 2018, Michael Thomas, playing for the same team as Horn, pulled the same stunt after scoring a touchdown in the same stadium. He, too, was fined $30,000 for his antics. When asked why he did what he did, he said he was paying tribute to Horn. Well, that's one way to do it. Maybe someday someone would pay him tribute too. As for today, let's see someone who is notorious for crazy celebrations that have cost him fines worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in his career. I speak of Chad Johnson, who in 2009 claimed that he'd set aside $100,000 to pay for fines he might accrue that season. That was how defiant Johnson was. He was always looking for the next trouble to get into, and when it came to celebrations, you better bet he would go the extra mile. One time, he pretended to bribe an official with a dollar bill inside a freaking ball game and got a $20,000 fine. He also performed CPR on a ball after a touchdown. Then, he went on one knee and proposed to a cheerleader. He also put up a sign that read, "Dear NFL, please don't fine me again." But of course, the NFL fined him $10,000 for that. His biggest fine, however, was the $30,000 penalty he got for wearing a huge future Hall of Fame jacket. This was the Chad way. Where most players wanted to just win, Chad took it a step further and mixed fun with the game. And the truth is, whether the NFL saw many of his acts as disgusting, fans actually loved to watch Chad do his thing. The same, however, cannot be said of Randy Moss, who some hated, especially those at Lambeau. You see, in 2004, during the playoff games against the Green Bay Packers, Randy Moss and his Minnesota Vikings team witnessed a horrific sight while they were driving in their bus to Lambeau. They were greeted by a couple of guys who brought down their pants to show their bare butts as they drove past. Moss had decided he was going to take vengeance, and boy did he do it in style. After catching a touchdown, Moss then proceeds to bring down his pants in a mocking way. Now, while some people found it hilarious and others were shocked, the NFL wasn't exactly amused. They have their fair share of rules and regulations, So, as you can imagine, Mr. Moss found himself on the receiving end of a fine worth $10,000. But hey, let's not forget that this incident also showcased Randy Moss's larger-than-life personality. He was always known for his on-field antics and unique flair, and this mooning moment only added to his legend. Love him or hate him, you couldn't deny that he brought a certain kind of excitement to the game. So, there you have it, a bunch of NFL daredevils who dared to bear it all and face the consequences. It may have cost them some hard-earned dollars, but it also etched their names in the annals of football history as one of the most memorable characters to ever grace the gridiron.